Welcome to Save As Ability, a podcast to educate and inform you about disability employment issues. My name is David D'Arcangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Inclusive employment for people with disabilities, that's what we're talking about today on Save As Ability. Great to be with you. David D'Arcangelo, another episode. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. Help us keep great content flowing for you. Today we're discussing a critical topic, really essential to people with disabilities and their independence and self-determination, or I should say working age people with disabilities, right? And that is inclusive employment for people with disabilities. We're going to talk about some tactics, both employee and employer, because it really takes two, right? Everybody always focuses on one or the other. To me, it's both. It's always been both, and you got to consider both the employee and employer. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I really believe that employment is a cornerstone for independence and self-determination for everybody, really, but particularly people with disabilities, because we know of the very difficult situation that there is in employment for people with disabilities. So again, I believe promoting access to opportunity, promoting dignity for everyone. It starts with making good on your talents and skills and ability. You can't have a disability without first having ability. So let's focus on the ability. So people with disabilities often face significant barriers in employment. We know this. We've talked about it. We're going to explore a little bit more how we can create more inclusive workplaces. So let's understand the current landscape. And we've been over this, but for those who are new here or for now, let's talk about the Census Bureau conducts data, and they work with other agencies too. And one is the Labor Department. Okay, so they produce the first Friday of every month the unemployment data for people with disabilities, and it's administered through our colleagues that we've worked with and do a great job up at the University of New Hampshire, the NTIDE. They produce the data for the Labor Department on the unemployment rate for people with disabilities, the labor participation rate, the employment to population ratio, all of the data relative to people with disabilities. And we know that, and don't believe me, you can go check it out on their website or the Labor Department's website, that both the labor participation rate and the unemployment rate for people with disabilities is substantially less than people without disabilities. So, the unemployment rate, I think, is double or maybe even more. And then the labor participation rate might be even more than that. So, I think all total, when you add the two groups together, you're looking at somewhere around 70% of all working age people with disabilities who are not employed. Forget about unemployed. If you're unemployed, at least you are in the labor force. Approximately 70% of all working age people with disabilities not employed. That's a national tragedy. We're failing those people. Those people have stuff to give for themselves, for the employer, for society. So let's stay positive here, though, at Save As Ability. You know how we are. So while the employment gap is significant, we're trying to highlight the need for proactive measures that promote inclusion. That's what I'm doing here at Archangel Communications and here at Save As Ability, really pushing inclusion of people with disabilities. So one of the primary barriers in employment for people with disabilities historically has been accessibility and access needs, and that can be everything from transportation to the physical accessibility and, ramps, elevators, digital accessibility, having screen readers and workstations that are outfitted for people with disabilities of all different prevalence types, by the way. So, it's up to employers of 15 or more, to ensure that their workplaces are accessible to their employees and prospective employees as well. So, other barriers are things like awareness, really, and just an understanding among employers about what their obligations are, what their responsibilities are, what incentives there are out there to be able to, spur and incentivize employment of people with disabilities, because there are programs for that. We're going to do a future episode specifically on that, by the way. But misconceptions about the capabilities of people with disabilities, unfortunately, are still present And really those can help distract employers away from, it's like the fear of the unknown. It's like, why even enter into the process? And, maybe their process is unintentionally screening people with disabilities out, the way their job descriptions are written, the interview process or something. So we don't want to exclude anybody here at Save Visibility. At Save Visibility, we're about inclusion. And that's what we're asking all of you to consider, both whether you're employee or employer or prospective employee, whatever the case may be. We're talking about access to opportunity. We're talking about the beauty of our capitalist system is being able to take the talents and skills and abilities from that person, translate it to the employer so that the employer can monetize it, pay the employee, make a profit, add to society, right? And so it's a win-win-win when it's done well. And it can be, and it is in many cases, but we still got a way to go. So, all right, it's critical for employees and employers to educate themselves and their staff about disability awareness and inclusion. So the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, provides a legal framework, and there's many tools out there from the Labor Department and Ask Jan and EarnWorks and ODEP and all these other publicly available resources for employees and employers to be able to figure out what it is that they need to do to be able to work within these laws and programs and really provide access to opportunities for people with disabilities. So again, just a little bit of a review that the ADA requires businesses who employ 15 or more employees to provide reasonable accommodations to those employees and those people with disabilities. So this includes accommodations such as flexible work hours, modified equipment, job restructuring. I think one of the reasons we've seen, if you go back to the NTI data that we've talked about, if you look at the rate for people with disabilities, it actually has slightly improved. And I think part of the thing is during COVID, when everybody went remote, I think that actually helped many people with disabilities in certain instances, and other barriers were able to come down, flexible work hours and job crafting and really being able to provide these accommodations, I think have ultimately helped people with disabilities. But that's not the full answer either. We still have a long ways to go here. So, legislation alone isn't enough. Laws are only as good as they're going to be enforced and they're going to be incentivized. And, so we've got to actively foster an inclusive culture in our society, but particularly in employers of 15 or more. And the employee has to be willing to do it as well and will be willing to be flexible and adapt as well. Again, this is a two-part thing. It's not just the employee. It's not just the employer. It's both working together. It's that interactive process. That dialogue is so key. That's in the ADA. So we got to create policies and practices that support employees with disabilities and encourage their full participation in the workplace, which means promoting inclusion at all levels of the organization. So inclusive employment helps businesses. We know this. Research shows that diverse teams are more innovative, more productive. We have data on this. Look at the Accenture study that was done. Look at the Disability In study that was done. AAPD did some work. There's been a multitude of studies that indicate that people with disabilities can be some of your best employees, that they're natural problem solvers, that they bring their unique perspective. These are all good things that can help drive business success. So, but making inclusive workspaces, it can be counterintuitive, particularly like the built environment. And there's like all these fears of the unknown, like you're hearing from your legal department, like, oh, if we bring them in, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? They're going to sue us. All of these things, most of them, unfortunately, unfounded. You can get by it. There's so many resources we just talked about to employ people with disabilities. And really, they can help your business. And they can be a benefit by attracting a broader customer base. And, if I said to you, oh, okay, there's 13% of the population is people with disabilities. If you could be a disability leader corporation, you have potential to pick up a sizable market share of that. That equates to millions of potential customers that if you're good with people with disabilities and they're inclined to use your widget more than a company that isn't as good with people with disabilities, that's a substantial market share that you can pick up. So again, don't believe me. Look at the data. There's multiple reports done that show that people with disabilities can be a real benefit to your business. So Just some examples, some shameless plugs here, by the way. Some of these organizations I'm a part of, several organizations and initiatives are leading the way to promoting inclusive employment for people with disabilities. This includes long-standing organizations such as National Industries for the Blind, of which I'm on the board. We provide training. We're the largest employer of blind people in the United States. We provide training and employment opportunities for people who are blind and visually impaired, mainly through the Javits-Wagner-O'Day Act. Great program. So similarly, Open Inclusion, which I'm a consultant to, Open Inclusion offers consultancy services to help businesses become more accessible, more inclusive. These are organizations that are working to promote access to opportunity for people with disabilities, and they're getting results. So employers can participate in disability employment initiatives. We're working right now. We're signing people up for National Disability Employment Awareness Month in October. Go to archangelcommunications.com. Find out more if you want us to give you a training. There's all kinds of programs, networking opportunities. I encourage you to take advantage. If you have questions, let me know. But really, we're about creating inclusive workplaces here. And it requires a commitment. You got to devote resources. You got to invest time and people, and it takes work. There's a reason why 2/3 of all working age people with disabilities are not in the labor force, So as we wrap up here, just want to let you know we're there for you to promote and support inclusion of people with disabilities in your workforce. I'm fired up as usual. It's David Darkangelo. Let us know what you want to hear. Thanks again for joining another episode of Save as Ability. I hope you have a great day. For more information about disability employment issues, please visit our website, disabilityemploymentsolutions.com. The Save as Ability podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel at Disability Policy Expert, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment. Save as Ability lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. #TheNewRadio. Again, my name is David Darkangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Until next time, thank you. I hope you have a great day.